Hello, Ken. How are you this absolutely fantastic evening?
Oh, Dan, I am beautiful and all the better for being here with you and our wonderful listeners and watchers.
Well, I didn't ask how you're looking, but I'm glad you're feeling beautiful. I need you, though, to give up. What in the heck does that mean?
Let's start with a story. This morning, I was going in to see an orthopedic surgeon, about some pain I've been having with my right shoulder. And I got the results of my MRI a week ago. I read them. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. And yet, from my cursory reading of it, I just thought, wow, surgery is around the corner. I know it's going to happen. There's no two ways about it. This is my future. It has to happen, and it has to happen now. Clearly, it can't go on like this. So I went in and talked to this guy, and he's got quite a resume. Sports medicine, team physician for professional NBA and NFL teams, and the guy makes money by cutting people open and like replacing shoulders and hips and knees and doing all sorts of repair. So I fully expected that he was going to call his assistant in and schedule me as soon as he saw me. And yet what happened was not that. What happened was him saying to me, I think you can continue to work with this through exercise, physical therapy, and that he'd like me to get 5, maybe even 10 years down the road, managing this through other means and then we're probably going to be looking at surgery. But I had to give up this preconceived notion of the way it had to be. And I formed that opinion based on incomplete information, not being an expert in the field. And I had formed the opinion. And then the kind of sad part was it started to feel a little bit depressing, because it's about 6 months total time to get 100% back to fully functioning. And work is building up right now. And I thought, man, how am I going to manage this? I constructed all these different scenarios in my head. And I want to just do a quick sidebar here. One of the first things that I coach on or consult on is how quickly we invent stories that are oftentimes not based on fact. And then we build those stories into like full-blown, tragic operas, and in Italian, because it's just more tragic that way. I had done that. And it was shocking how fast that happened, how quickly that happened. And then in an instant, I had to give that up. I had to just let go and realize that the assumptions that I had made were not correct. And the benefit of consulting an expert in any field is that you get the benefit of their expertise, you get the benefit of their knowledge, you get the benefit of their experience, and you have an opportunity to get rid of the story and just deal with what's so. And what's so, after he put me through this whole battery of strength tests and flexibility tests, is that he, if he were in my shoes, would choose not to have surgery right now, but would just continue to exercise, do physical therapy, pay attention to nutrition, stay in good shape, build as much muscle as possible, and then look further down the road in terms of the surgical option. So it was a great lesson. It was a great lesson on two things. Number one, the importance of being able to quickly let something go when you realize you've created a story about it. The importance of just giving it up. It's like, nope, that's the thing I had walking into this, and that is not what's so. And the second thing was just how quickly, based on some incomplete understanding of information that we're not particularly expert at, just how quickly we form a story and then play it out in a very dramatic fashion.
I think the main takeaway from your story is that we all need to give up on fear. There are two acronyms for fear that I really love. The first is false evidence appearing real, and the second is fantasized events appearing real. And either one you pick, it's the same thing. It's that we are creating fear. We are literally using this with, again, false evidence or limited information at our disposal, right? Or we're creating stuff in our minds. We're fantasizing events. We're predicting the future. And therefore, both things, I've told you before, there's an indistinguishability between fantasized events or memories, right? So it's like real evidence of like a memory, something that really happened, or a created memory through a fantasized events. They both feel real. So the last two letters appearing real, it's because of that, the way your brain functions. So I think the first thing that we all need to give up on is to create a future that doesn't serve us, right? If we continue to either take limited information and jump to a conclusion about what's going to happen in the future, or we just create a fantasy event or imagine what the future could be like in the way that actually does not serve us, in both cases, you have to realize what you're doing is just creating a future that you're afraid of. And if you're doing that, the first thing in our title today, Give Up, the first thing is just please give up on fear. And how do you do that? You give up on fear by doing the same thing, but to serve you. So if you have previously looked at false evidence, we'll call it limited information, is just pick different evidence that serves you. Switch from the prosecution on fear to the defense of confidence, right? And that you want to be the person who says, no, I have every reason to get excited about this, or right? I've told you that story before where two humans can be side by side in a cart on a roller coaster, and they can have looking at their physiology and the blood flowing through their body, and they would say, oh, it's identical. But in fact, one person would be afraid, they'd be in fear, and the other person would be having what they call excitement. But biochemically, it's the same. So when you think about the future and you have those things that you know, it's like normal, right? To be afraid or for fear. Just flip it on its head and go, no, I'm going to pick out the evidence that serves me in gaining excitement or confidence in spite of what should be fearful. I'm going to fantasize events that serve me where I see the future being what I want it to be versus something that I could then interpret as something I need to be afraid of. So step one, give up on fear.
It's normal, right? It's normal. It's natural. And I want to acknowledge that having like, experienced this in a very real way. We default to that. It's baked into our DNA. We just go there. And it takes, like you were saying, Dan, it takes some effort to actually pick the evidence that's going to create a more positive future, a more positive story for ourselves. We pick that as a means of self-defense. That's where our DNA sends us, and it obviously it served us well over these thousands of years. That's why human beings are still here today. And yet, to your point, it doesn't really serve us that much anymore. And in fact, it can do absolutely the opposite, which is the experience that I had until he talked to me. And then I walked out with this realization that not only is it important to give up fear and to let that go, but as long as we like to create stories, and human beings do, we're master storytellers. All of the things that we do focus on story, our family history, our religious history, our national heritage, our ethnic backgrounds, all of that stuff. It's all about stories. We can talk about and create stories that serve us and that advance us and that allow us to experience life like we want to experience it. And I was reflecting on this on the drive back today. I could have taken this from a different perspective before I knew what was going to happen. even if I thought surgery was probably coming, that it was probably imminent, I could have seen that as an opportunity to truly slow down, to truly quiet myself, to truly give myself creative time, thought time, and just be in it. And to really be grateful for that. It's like, wow, I'm going to have a month of kind of immobility. I can create, I can think, I can do some dictating in order to write. I'm working on a second book right now. There are so many things that I could do during that time, even if surgery was a thing that was going to be recommended. There's so many things that I could have done to use that time productively and creatively. It would have, in essence, been like this forced retreat in which my mind could come to rest, and I could just allow those creative juices to flow, and I could have advanced stuff really quickly. And so I think in walking away from this now, it gave me an appreciation for wanting to construct my days to serve me the best. I don't have to wait for a surgery to designate creative time to do my writing. I don't have to wait for being incapacitated to give myself time every day to really let my mind come to rest, not in a perfunctory way like checklist, done my meditation, but like really to allow myself to sink in to that state of creation where great things get to be born. And so, yeah, let go of the fear. Recognize that, hey, it's normal. You're not alone. Everyone defaults to it, and you don't have to stay there. You can give that up. And if you can just move even a degree or 2 degrees to like another lens through which to look at something and ask that question, well, what might come out of this that's great? Like what adventure? Like we talked about last week. How can I see this as riding a wave as opposed to woe is me, why is this happening to me? How can I see the storm as something that could carry me to something great as opposed to something I have to fight and battle? And that to me is the synchronicity between what we talked about and what I experienced this week.
People don't quit enough. That is a quote from an interview that Tim Ferriss, I think many of you are familiar with him, he did with a gentleman named John List. And I guess his book, which I've not read yet, but I think it's interesting, is called The Art of Optimal Quitting. And you think, wow, what an interesting topic. But it aligns perfectly with our topic of giving up or give up, right? And when I heard a brief clip from that podcast, I thought to myself, there's a specific person I want to send this to. And when I did, they called me and they said, why did you send that to me? Like, what do you think I should be quitting on? Because really what this theory comes from, and this in the little clip that I watched, what I understood it to be was that we need to be not holding on to these cliche things that make up rules that if we violate, we almost feel like a quitter, or we almost feel like we failed, when sometimes actually the act of saying no to something or stopping something you were previously doing, or initially believing this is going to work out and seeing that clear signs are that it's probably never going to work out without, some dramatic change, that you let that go, that in our term, you give up on continuing to do that thing. So there are many examples I could give. The one that I think is most common is a business idea. I find it challenging when I'm consulting with a company that I hear the path they're going down and I think, ooh, this is not going to work, right? Because they didn't bring me in or hire me or ask my opinion because they want me to tell them how it won't work. They want me to tell them how it can work, right? So often the worst advice I could give if I'm looking out for my best interest, which is to keep a consulting gig going longer, would be to tell them, just give up on this idea, right? But sometimes that's the best advice I could give if I'm looking out for their best interest, because in most things, Ken says it all the time, like time is our most important or finite resource. Like you just can't get it back. So as a company, you have usually multiple resources, time being one of them, but also literal financial resources you're expending on people, right? To then spend that time dedicated to something that you could see maybe they could allocate those resources of time and money differently. So when you think about giving up, I'd ask you to challenge yourself to look not at like the rosy picture of, yep, it'll just work out if you work hard enough, or that cliched rule of, you're not a quitter. Don't just give up on something. Keep going until you get it right, and then go, maybe there's some things I should give up on because I can dedicate my resources and do something that could be even better.
I spent the past 5 days with my dad. For our regular listeners, you'll know that he's 96 years old, doing well, lives with my sister, and she is extraordinary. So every month or two, I try to take some time to go there so she and her partner can take off and get a little bit of a break because it's a lot of work to just be there for somebody 24/7. He is an avid reader, just voracious, and he reads dense books. He reads books on the Napoleonic Wars, and he's reading the 800-page biography of George Washington, and he's reading this amazing story about this crew team, this rowing team that went to the 1936 Olympics just prior to the onset of World War II, and so he digs into stuff. He's reading this one book on the caste system in India. It is dense. I picked it up and read through a few pages. It's just difficult to get through. And there's a lot of vocabulary in there that's really difficult to understand. You have to pause and look up. And he's cursing the book as he's reading it. And like literally cursing. And I go, Dad, you got 3 other books in the queue. It's like, put it down, call it a day, just quit. It's like, I'm not a quitter. I don't give up. I go, I get it. You're 96. You don't give up. That's clear. But you don't have to read the book. I go, are you enjoying it? He's like, no, it's really, really difficult. But he goes, it's not that even that it's difficult. He goes, it's just not fun. I don't enjoy it. I'm not learning that much. He goes, I don't know why I picked it up, but it's just not working for me. And I go, I just want you to quit. He could not bring himself to do it. He's like, look, if I just 5 pages a day or 10 pages a day, I'll have this done in the next few months because it's monstrous in size. And I go, it's that important for you to get to the end. He goes, yeah. And I go, why? He goes, that's just the way I was raised. You don't quit on anything. You finish everything on your plate. You finish the job in the field. You finish doing whatever. You work through a challenging relationship. There's a lot of good stuff in there, right? There's a lot of stuff you don't want to quit on. But then there are those times, and this just requires some critical thinking and the ability to know that it's not one size fits all. Everything isn't the same. And this is one of those times. We had this great conversation about how giving up isn't being a quitter. It's just saying, man, this book doesn't serve me. There's like the discomfort of reading it is outweighing the information I'm gleaning from it, any lessons I might get. And so, you know what? Not all of them are winners. Not all of them are great, and not all of them resonate with everyone. Even books that are well written and well reviewed, he may not enjoy them all. And so we finally got to this point of this distinction that he could give up and let go. And it doesn't mean that he himself is a quitter. And I think that's an important distinction. I don't want to read this book anymore. This business idea, it's not panning out. Let's not waste any more time on it. I've been living in fear of this thing. I'm going to let that go. I'm going to give that up. It doesn't mean I'm a quitter. It means that those particular things don't serve me. So I am going to let them go. I am going to give those up.
That reminds me so much of my son. And since I only have one son, you'll know exactly who this is, but he will scream at his computer screen because of games that just frustrate him so. And I often remind him, I'm like, why do you play this game? It does not sound enjoyable to you. It sounds massively frustrating to you. But I think it's that, like, I'm going to beat this level or whatever he's doing, right? Like, I'm going to get past it. So there's a lot to be said, right? With this ability to just like pursue and persevere and like push through the discomfort and pain. So it's that difficult thing, because from all self-help, they tell you the story of like you're an inch away from the diamonds. Like they'll show the picture of the guy in the mine digging and just nothing, nothing, nothing. And then he gives up, but you can see kind of the side view, and you can see if he just went another inch, all those diamonds were sitting right behind that wall. And so I think it's important for us to remember, and this sounds depressing, but it's the truth, is it's okay to be ordinary, right? Like those stories, to be an inch away from diamonds, that's the extraordinary. That is literally the unicorn Bigfoot story. That just never happens, right? That did happen. That's why they made a story about it. But that's probably not going to happen to you. But I don't see that to be realistic or to disappoint you. Just simply to say, sometimes if it's just getting so frustrating, it's like, does that serve the value of your life? I really like Tom Bilyeu saying, it's like life is really about how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself, right? Like it's almost like, what are we striving for? It's to feel good about ourselves. So if you're in that cave alone, chipping away and nothing's happening, and you're just getting frustrated, don't think you're going to be the unicorn who's going to go one more inch and do it. No, it's okay to just give up on that and then go do something more enjoyable and enjoy your life, right? If this video game isn't serving you, please maybe choose a different video game. The hardest thing for me, it sounds so simple, but it's giving up on finishing plates of food. I've always just like ingrained since a young age, because I told you I come from a big family of, you wanted to finish and you wanted to eat fast so you could get whatever was, if there was any extra, you could get that extra. Now I find myself going on business trips where a company is paying for my food and I still have to finish it, right? And I'm thinking, wait, why? And it's like this weird mix of things, like I don't give up, right? On like, somebody made this and somebody's paying for it, and it would be wasteful to just stop eating it. But sometimes I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, oh, like, I don't need any more food. I'm full. I'm good. So just be aware of things and recognize when enough is enough, and it's okay to give up, because it's really about you feeling good about yourself.